From the behind the scenes of a talented illustrator and artist to Hytale as a creative outlet and more. Don't miss out on the latest on Hycast, starting right now. Hello everyone and welcome to Hycast, the premier Hytale podcast. I'm your host Fezzi, and today we're joined by Righteous Pebble. Welcome to the podcast. We're glad to have you with us today.
Thank you. It's really cool to be here. Appreciate the invite and the work you do.
Of course. So, just to kind of jump in, as we always do, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and where you see yourself in the Hytale community?
Yeah, I'm a Righteous Pebble, so I'm a fan artist in the Hytale community and a regular artist everywhere else. And I've been following Hytale since the launch of the trailer, reading all the cool stuff about it, and just really started diving into the fan art thing recently, and it's been really rewarding. Cool.
So yeah, let's hop into your work and kind of your creations. So you've become very well known for your distinct, detailed, and high quality illustrations, which you create both digitally and on paper. What's the creative process behind making a piece like yours, and how many hours go into each one?
Yeah, so I primarily work in two mediums, digital and then, pencil, pen on paper. And for traditional drawing, it's pretty straightforward. It's comfortable for me. I just do a rough drawing, light pencil, detail drawing over that, and then pens over that, and then I just shade over that with more pencil. And so it's pretty straightforward and it's a quick process. But for digital, it's a bit more complex because you add color to the mix. Yeah. When you add color, it really increases the complexity of art tremendously, I think. And so what I do is I start with a rough pencil sketch on paper, and then because I work in Procreate and an iPad, I can just take a picture on the iPad and immediately just put it in the program and start drawing directly over that sketch, which is pretty cool. And then I'll tackle things like composition, lighting, where I want to put the focus, colors. And the best part about digital work to me is the ease. You can edit like huge parts of a drawing. So if a character's in the wrong spot or his pose is all wrong, you can just lasso him up, boom, move him over all intact. On paper, you'd have to redraw the entire character with all the detail you had up to that point. So digital really gives you the opportunity to nail a composition without any repercussions for like tearing up a drawing.
100%. And plus, it's easier to undo mistakes.
Right. Control Z. It's a lifesaver.
Yeah. So throughout your work, it's clear that you give a lot of attention to detail, which is shown throughout the vast accuracy and complexity of your illustrations. So with that in mind, what can you tell us about those details and why you believe they're so important?
I've always loved detail-oriented illustrations, like paintings that you can look at for hours and just feel like you haven't seen it all. And I think illustrations, especially fantasy, video game illustrations, they should really invite the viewer into a new world. They should be intrigued. They should want to ask questions. Small details in the lore should just kind of help that process along. Like, oh, what's that symbol mean? And who's that character? Why do they look so angry? Is he the bad guy? Stuff that really gets your imagination flowing. I love that.
Yeah, building on the lore thing, does lore kind of play a part in your illustrations? Do you incorporate it? Does it affect the final product?
Yeah, for Hytale specifically, we don't know a lot about the lore of the game. And so this is it's exciting and frustrating because it's exciting because there's a lot of mystery there. There's a lot of room to explore. We can ask questions, but it's frustrating because I feel like I might be getting some of the lore wrong. So like with Tessa and the Orbis officers, we know who they are. We know they exist, but we don't know their roles. We don't know what their goals are, what their relationships are to the other characters. Gaia, Varen, Outlanders, we don't know much about these things. And so we can assume, but there's going to be a margin of error. And so I think some of my fan art in particular might look a bit off when the game releases and we know more because so you got that wrong because it's actually this thing instead. And so right now I'm trying to stay a bit vague, like hints of things there and there, but I don't want to commit to any tonal decisions because I could just be wrong.
Right. I mean, it's fair. We don't know really anything at all. Like, even though we've been given like a ton of blog posts, we still have like no clue what's going on. So
they said they have like 60 pages, 90 pages, something crazy of lore written down. It's like I'd love to see that. Then I can get going. But yeah, for now it's just little bits and pieces.
Right. Exactly. So your work has been noticed by the developers who tweeted about it before you even joined Twitter. So what was your reaction logging onto Twitter for the first time and seeing your work featured by the Hytale team, and how did that make you feel?
That was such a cool feeling. Honestly, I've been in a bit of art block before that, bit of a rut before Rodan shared that first drawing of Varen from Reddit. And I just wasn't finding the energy to draw. I was in a stressful place with employment. I remember seeing the sketch of Varen I had done like a year ago, right after the launch of the trailer. It was sitting on my desk, and I'm like, let me clean that up. It's not bad. Let me just ink it, post it. Why not? And he shared it, and I thought that's really cool. Why haven't I joined this Twitter thing yet? Isn't that how they pick the pieces for the fan art showcase? I might as well hop on there. And so that's what I did right in that moment. I'm like, and since then it's been really exciting, and the response from the community has been wonderful, and I appreciate like every single bit of feedback.
Yeah, that's cool. That's crazy that like your work was already like being recognized before you were even like on the platform fully. Like,
Right.
That's crazy. That's really cool.
Very flattering.
So since that day, you have continued making like new illustrations and have been featured in the third official Hytale fan art spotlight. So as someone who has been originally quite shy with showing their art to others, what can you say to aspiring artists who look up to you?
Well, first off, there's loads more artists that are more deserving of their aspirations than me, but I'm winging it as best I can, and hopefully it looks intentional. But if I could say anything, it would just be don't wait, like don't procrastinate. You can never measure the missed opportunities that have escaped you in your life because you procrastinated, and especially with art. So going hand in hand with that, like be confident, because you have to think your work has worth in order to convince yourself to work on it. But you don't want to be in the position of looking at your art from 10 years ago and thinking, yeah, that's awesome, that's really good, because that usually just means you haven't improved. Like you should be proud of what you've done, but it feels much better to be proud of the progress you've made rather than saying your finest work was 10 years ago. And that's what procrastination will do to you, is it'll slow you down, hinder your progress. So find the time, definitely. Yeah,
so keep it flowing. Let it out there, because there's a lot of artists that I personally know that like just don't post their stuff anywhere. And it's like they're so talented, like they would be huge, So, be like you said, be confident. That's a great way to put it. So, moving on a little bit, your illustrations are not limited to Hytale, with your personal website containing a large selection of digital and traditional illustrations. So, even things like 3D models and even animation. So, what was your gateway into being an artist and illustrator? How did it all start?
Yeah, I always feel myself kind of pulled in different directions. It's always been illustration, but animation is exciting. I mean, 3D modeling is exciting, all these things. And so I feel myself like, well, I want to invest my time in that as well. But I always illustration's always been the thing. So both my parents were creative types when I was growing up. I mean, my mom was a great painter and she loved crafting things. And my dad is a super talented writer. And so they both really pushed me to follow my creative side, and they nourished whatever, artistic leanings I had. But, it's always been my thing, but neither of them really had it as their career. And so it was just kind of a hobby and like a far-fetched dream for them. And so I never really bought into the idea that you could do art for a living growing up. So everybody was telling me like, do that, but I didn't know how to navigate the proper channels, how to market myself, what I should focus on besides just what jumped out as me exciting. So that's what I'm trying to do now, is kind of dedicate myself a bit more to the focus on improving and practicing and advertising myself as an artist rather than just someone who draws. And the second part of that puzzle is video games. I mean, I know it's a lot of people are the same way. Video games are just so inspiring for art. And for me, it was Diablo 2, Lord of Destruction. Have you played?
I haven't played Diablo 2. I played Diablo 3, which is controversial, but I'm familiar-ish with the universe.
Right. So, I mean, I love Diablo 3 too, but the Diablo 2 has such an atmosphere to it that just is really incredible. And so that was, when I was growing up, I played just a ton of Diablo 2, and it was such a huge inspiration for me. The gothic world, the immersion, the voice acting, it was incredible. And so after that, my stepfather introduced us to the wider world of video games, and suddenly I was looking at Oblivion and Guild Wars and Warcraft and all these other huge titles, and I just was blown away. And so at that point I was hooked. I just kind of, it's the beginning of the end, and I just looked to the video games for everything, and it just inspired my art so much. So I think they're incredible sources of inspiration. Oh yeah,
100%. So when you were starting out, what were some of the things you found challenging when it comes to art and illustration, and how did you overcome those challenges?
Art is interesting because you can meticulously track your skill based on your results. So like if you've practiced anatomy, it shows. If you've studied lighting and color theory, it shows. And if you've practiced landscapes, backgrounds, life drawing, perspective, it all shows. And so on the flip side, if you haven't studied any of those things, it also shows. So when you want to learn how to draw something new, it's as if you're starting from scratch again. So having to relearn the process, the ins and outs of that specific domain of visual arts, like you're a noob again, and it's painful because you want to go back to that thing you're good at, that thing you're experienced with, because it's easy, it's comfortable, and it's like tempting to get stuck in and tunnel visioned into that one specific area. But as an artist, if you succumb to that, it'll cripple you because you won't be useful to a company who's looking for X, Y, and Z when you can only do X. And so there's exceptions, of course, to that rule, but I think that's the good general rule, and is overcoming your urge to kind of rest on your laurels and just pushing yourself to improve. Oh yeah, and it's understandable because it's difficult it's very difficult to find work, commission-based work online. Right. I know, because like I was trying to do graphics design or graphics art, like commission based online, and I mean it's just like it feels like impossible sometimes. So, it's such a huge world. There's so many people, so many players that are playing a part of that game, and so it's Yeah, the goal
And
of one day is to be like a well-rounded artist who can tackle anything. But I
exactly.
mean, nobody's done that as far as I know. The best ones though are the ones that are further along that journey than the rest, as far as learning the really important fundamentals.
There's a lot of competition, but there's also a lot of different interests. You know, like you said,
Yes, exactly.
you have to learn how to push your boundaries, get into new things, because there's going to be demand for new things.
Yep.
So 100%. So a lot of aspiring individuals are wondering how they can kick in and become illustrators or concept artists themselves. In your opinion, what do you believe beginners should focus on? What skills should people prioritize getting good at when they start making art?
That's a great question. I mean, it is the question. Everybody's, what is the thing I should be doing to get good quickest? And I wish I had some real industry experience to come up with this amazing get good quick tip, but I don't, and I don't think it exists. So I'm still figuring it out. I think most artists are. I'll just regurgitate what I've heard from artists way better than me, which is practice the fundamentals, do the hard work, do the things that excite you because they'll keep you motivated, and so they'll keep you doing it. But tackle the things you aren't good at, the things that are really uncomfortable for you. Because the more well-rounded you are, the more enticing you'll look to potential clients or companies.
Yeah, and I think when you get there, I mean, it's kind of just like, I don't know if there's like a method to the madness necessarily. Mm-hmm. I think everyone kind of has their different experience getting into that industry.
Right.
Because, there, for example, like just as my own experience being a video editor on YouTube, like there's a lot of video editors on YouTube, but you have no idea how to get into that, right? And it just kind of happens to you eventually. Mm-hmm. And you have no idea how you got there, but you got there.
Yeah, and then you're just stumbling along, but with more of an audience.
Exactly. You're still figuring it out. So I don't think there's really a method to the madness. I think you just gotta, like you said, do exactly what you said. Just push your boundaries and keep going. I mean, because eventually something will happen. But either way, moving on. Hytale, let's dive in a little bit to Hytale as a creative outlet. So the idea of Hytale being a platform is one that has been widely agreed upon throughout the community. What do you think Hytale has gained, or why do you think, Hytale has gained this status, and how do you believe it will impact both the game and community surrounding it?
Yeah, so I think you'd probably agree with me when I say that Hytale seems to have pressed a certain button that no one else has really managed to press, which is that like awaken the creative world builder inside you and make something cool that people can play with button.
Yep.
Like there's been attempts at that in the past, and if you look at the track record of games that do that, it's really positive. I mean, any game that allows modding, for example, it not only increases the chance of that game staying popular for longer, but it opens the doors for entirely new projects from the most unlikely places. I mean, just the staying power of Skyrim a decade after launch, and it's almost entirely due to the amazing modding community. And
it's remained so popular that they've re-released the same game so many times.
Right, and the Legendary Edition, the Ultimate Edition, the Amazing Edition.
Yep. 100%.
The best example of it too is just to continue on that is League of Legends and Warcraft 3. I mean, it's incredible because the Warcraft 3 world editor to me is one of the most important historical artifacts of the gaming industry as far as I'm concerned, because it allowed for the creation of one of the most popular game genres this century, which is like the MOBA genre. I mean, battle royales are up there too, but that process from like Warcraft 3 custom map to League of Legends as it stands today is such an amazing thing to learn about. I mean, it was such an organic process from like a small team of developers to a dedicated community and the refining of that original idea. And you had like the dirty legal battles and the lawsuits and stuff, but I think everybody benefited. The whole entire gaming world benefited from players being able to make something from something else. I mean, all art is derivative, so I think video games are the same way. Like, it's exciting because you could create something, put it out into the world, let other people get involved, and they could run with that, and they'll take it to places that you never thought it could go. And that's what happened with Warcraft 3 and the world editor, and I think the same could be true for Hytale. And that's something that's really cool, actually, because Riot Games, they started from the moddability of another game, and now they're kind of investing in a moddable game, and it's a great cyclical little pattern that I've noticed.
Yeah, that's a great point. That seems to be a trend with Riot, and I think it makes sense that Riot kind of chose Hytale to invest in, because it kind of aligns with their own background, their own origins, which is cool. And the only game I think that's come out recently that not in execution is the same, but in goal is pretty similar, is something like Dreams for the PS4, which has gotten very popular, and it's because it allows you to just create whatever. Now, of course, it's very different, but the goals are similar. Right. So I think Hytale could pull off some really big things for the game.
Industry. Open-ended nature is such a good pool for creativity to come from, because the more open it is, the more people you'll attract, and then the more ideas you'll come up with.
Because I mean, it's kind of spiritual predecessor Minecraft. We look at that it did that.
Right.
But Hytale's like better.
It's like taking it to 11, right?
Exactly. So that's going to be crazy to see how far that can go for absolute sure. So among the things Hytale potentially offers to both players and creators alike is the ability to easily bring their imagination to life and make their own games within Hytale. As a creator within the Hytale scene, what are your thoughts about this, and can we expect to see you involved with the Hytale game inside game industry?
Without a doubt. Yeah, I have so many ideas. The biggest drawback right now is trying to pace myself, remind myself the game's not out, things might change. I don't know what's possible yet. So keeping my ideas and hopes in check, not jumping the gun. Because whatever I explicitly plan out now just might not be feasible when the game launches. So I'm mostly just throwing a few vague ideas around my head about what I would want to create for people and then waiting patiently in the meantime. So I know others have really invested in the game, servers, communities popping up everywhere, including Hycast, which is awesome. And the buzz around all that potential creativity is just so satisfying. Like we were just talking about, I think Notch said too, is Minecraft was supposed to be unlimited potential. Like that's the underlying core idea behind that game. And it's done a great job of getting that ball rolling. But I think Hytale could be the next iteration of that idea.
Exactly, 100%. And the weird thing is that like Hytale seems to be in this place where it's accomplishing what a lot of games have already tried accomplishing. But in like it just seems to be that one game. It seems to be like in my mind that next big trendsetter.
Yeah, I don't want to overhype myself because I know I'm in danger of doing that, but it does feel that way.
It feels that way. Yeah. Because like a lot of people are like, there's a lot of like industry people that are like, oh, this is like Roblox, but like more, you know what I mean? Like in fact, it's very interesting that I've heard a lot more comparisons to a game like Roblox than Minecraft even now. Because I mean, it's just interesting the way this game has landed in terms of speculation. And of course, like you mentioned, we don't want to overhype ourselves. We don't want to create something in our head that we want to make in game that isn't possible. Right. Which I think the healthy way, like you said, is to just kind of have a vague idea in your head, bounce it around, and wait to see what you can pull off. Because there is a lot of communities that have overthought, like they have overshot, massive ambitions that like, even if they made their own game engine would probably be like difficult. Exactly. Right? So, you know, keep your expectations realistic and wait until the game comes out. And then once you realize what's possible, go crazy. I think that'll be an exciting time too. When that happens and when people start realizing that there's potential there, I think that's going to be just a boom of creativity. Yep. And I think it's going to be good for everyone, for content creators on YouTube, content creators on the game itself, people that just want to play the game. There's going to be variety. It's going to be crazy. And they're catering to that too. I mean, they're really opening up all their doors to the video sharing, it's cool. It's very cool to see. Yep. So let's kind of dive into the idea of limitations, because this isn't something we talk about too much, and it'd be interesting to get your opinion on it. So every game, of course, has limitations, like I said. With the community's attention fixated on what will be possible, what are some things you think might not be? Right. I've seen a lot of specific things being put out there, and I know they've responded to a few specific things. Like I'm pretty sure someone said that they won't be doing multi-block vehicles. So like buildable vehicles that are able to move around, which I understand it's a pretty complex thing. So but I'm more curious about what will be possible with and without coding knowledge and how big that gap will be. Like I'm hoping there'll be a decent amount of things you can change without having to be a coding guru. Like I know things like the UI, camera controls, key bindings for new actions, like all that stuff I want to see how far they can be pushed in Hytale, because those are the features that will really allow unique things to happen and new games to pop up. Right. Yeah. That you want accessibility when making something like that, or something that has the ambition of everyone can create what they have in their head, which is the goal. It won't be possible, but it will. That's the goal. That's like the general idea, and making that accessible is extremely important, and accessible to the point where it's easy to learn but hard to master. Like all the tools are in front of you. You just got to figure out what tools work best with each other. Right. And what I'm hoping it won't be, and I don't think it will because what we've seen, but basically just allowing you to reskin Hytale, and that's it. Like it looks a bit different, but plays essentially the same. We've seen enough to be pretty sure that's not the case, but there's still that little bit of worry there in my mind. Right. And that's fair because we haven't seen much. We haven't seen much in-game anything. We've seen a lot of screenshots and promotional art and like, oh, here's us smacking some skeletons, but we haven't seen the tools in work yet. You know, like, so that's going to be a big question answered for everyone, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Once either that finally gets revealed or even when the game just comes out.
Right.
So, yeah, 100%. Now, building on expectations a bit further, how do you think people's expectations will carry over from other games like Minecraft, which impact will Minecraft limits... Oh my god, I'm struggling to get this sentence out. What impact will Minecraft's limited features and customizability have on people's expectations?
Yeah, one thing that kind of worried me initially about Hytale's reveal was, and it's gotten better recently, I think, was and is people's desire to kind of force Minecraft's gameplay elements into Hytale unnecessarily. So like combat's a good example of this. I've seen a few comments and posts about what people are looking for in Hytale in regards to combat, PvP.
Yep.
And it seems there's a lot of expectation baggage. Like people expect Hytale combat to emulate Minecraft combat in some way. And I personally don't think that's a great idea. I mean, Minecraft did a lot of things really well. It's an outstanding sandbox game, but the combat specifically in that game is just not engaging.
Oh, it's awful.
Right. There's no skill, there's no depth, there's no flair or flavor there. And the plus side of that, though, is that Hypixel can do a lot with Hytale's combat, and really anything they do that's a step up from Minecraft will just be a net positive from them. So it doesn't have to be insane, highly complex dodges, parries, flipping around with cinematic, Skyrim-style executions, but anything that just helps with the immersion of the player into the fantasy world rather than hindering it will be a success for me.
I think player versus player specifically can be different from like combat on its own is a whole discussion, and it's a long one. But just to touch on it a little bit, I think like player versus player combat can be different from single player combat, and flow is what's important. And the reason Minecraft PvP sucks is because of tick rate. The server communication with the client is just nothing.
Right.
And Hytale on its website says like, built for competitive play, which tells me that a lot of that I think will be soothed, because you can make a combat system that makes you like the controversial 1.9. So, like that could work if you have a system that isn't clunky to begin with. If you have a good foundation, that could work.
It's probably Minecraft. It's very clunky, and
exactly.
That's why I think Hypixel knows this better than anyone. I think. I mean, considering they started Hypixel servers, I mean, they had to deal with this more than probably anybody else. It's just dealing with this clunky foundation and trying to make something really impressive out of something really clunky. It's got to be stressful, and so I really think they know going into this how to do it properly, what they're looking for, and I hope it's executed. It seems to, I mean, just weapon variety alone, I mean, you can see from just a few screenshots and things, you got throwing spears, you've got some weird looking stuff that's there. It's so cool.
Right. I think they're definitely taking combat very seriously this time around. Because we all saw what happens with Hypixel. Like PvP ended up being like the biggest thing, mini games and all that.
Right.
So I think they're going to take that head on for sure.
Yeah.
So let's move on a little bit to what you want to see from Hytale. So the Hytale team has been regularly updating us on the game's progress, which has been recently been more consistent, coming out on almost a monthly basis. So what do you expect to see in the next few blog posts, and how does it compare to what you've seen before?
If I'm being super selfish, it would be an updated collection of concept art and a lore dump. I know that's not everyone's cup of tea, and not everyone cares about the story or the artsy parts of the game, but I've always loved digging into like the nitty gritty of fantasy and creature design and character design. So seeing more of that would in turn give me more ammo for my fan arty projects and more inspiration, more questions, more exploring of those Hytale ideas, and I think that would just be the coolest thing. Oh yeah,
I think lore's gonna. I'd love a lore like breakdown, like just kind of a foundation of the universe that we're living in. Because I love a good story. I'm like, I watch like those movies that make you think after you leave the theater. Like I love really good stories, stuff that like really makes you think. So if Hytale has like a really immersive story, I think that's gonna be like crazy. Because imagine Hytale not only being known as like a creative outlet for people, but like just a really good game with a really good story.
Exactly. And that's why my goal, I mean, when it first comes out, is I'm just going to play Hytale. I'm just going to play the game as it's intended to be played. And I'm going to ignore the modability for a while. I'm going to just kind of play Hytale and enjoy their story that they made and just really feel it out. And I think so far it looks extremely promising and looks like a lot of fun to explore.
It does. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think kind of taking it for what the developers intended is definitely an important step, because that first of all teaches you how the base game works, for you to build upon for your own creative outlets. But not only that, if there's a really good story there, that's gonna be crazy, because like that'd be the first like voxel based like sandbox game I think that has ever had like a storyline.
Right. You see them trying to touch on it in Minecraft and stuff with like the Ender Dragon, and they're trying to like put these little stories. But like you said, the foundation's so clunky that it's kind of hard to then build. It's a sandbox game, and that is really what it can be. People would probably get upset if they tried to make it too much of a specific thing, and that's, I think, is also why they're doing Minecraft Dungeons, because they're kind of like, okay, we understand Minecraft is this. We're not going to try to force it to be a story, so we'll go over here and do this other game. And so it's good that Hytale has the advantage of right from the start being able to make their own thing in their own thing.
Right, 100%. So moving on a little bit, if you were to pick one thing to be showcased in the next blog post of like your art, what would you pick and why?
It'd probably be something related to creature design. So it's just, I know they've revealed that roaring lava thing in that last gameplay clip. I don't know what that is, but something just, I know the void spider is a thing they've hinted at. All these little things they've hinted at, but haven't really shown us the final design or the in-game version of it. And I would love to see just more examples. It's just, I get selfishly things to draw, things for me to look at and be like, yeah, I want to draw that and show that to everybody.
That's fair. I mean, you seem to, the thing is, I've looked quite a bit at your Twitter. You seem to like almost expand on what's there. Like you, like, for example, your short drawing looks like something that could exist in a movie. Like it's incredible. So I mean, I'd be okay with that.
Thank you so much.
Oh yeah. So, okay. So last normal question before we move on to a couple community questions. Hytale promises to be many different things and a wide variety of both players and creators in mind. If you got to request one feature or addition in Hytale right now, what would it be? It can be as big or small as you want. Right.
Like I said before, there's like the vehicle things. There's lots of little features I'd like to see in the game eventually, or at launch or whatever. But if I had to have like a dream scenario, I have no idea how feasible this is or what the logistics behind it might be. But back in like the late 90s, early 2000s, new games would launch with like a game guide, like a book. And in that book, you could find tips, guides, hints, and stuff for actual gameplay and story for players who kind of like stumped on a level and wanted to know more about skills, stats, or anything you needed. But also in that book was like a lot of flavor text, a lot of lore, and a lot of really cool illustrations that you couldn't find anywhere else. Right. And so for me, the perfect example of this was, again, Diablo 2. And I can't tell you how many times or how many hours I've poured over that book, the Diablo 2 game guide, because it was just, the art was so evocative and immersive, and I would just get lost. Like, as lame as that sounds, I mean, I probably had as much fun just getting lost in the book as I did playing the actual game. So a book like that, a game guide, but for Hytale, would just be like the coolest thing, I think. All the different dungeons, the characters, the factions, everything. I mean, the mobs and the gear. And to make a dream come true, obviously, I would love to personally illustrate for a project like that. But because of those kinds of things, you push the art style beyond what you see in game. So I think it could be a really cool look for the game, implementing a kind of a different style into the Hytale realm.
Yeah, and I think that would be a great tool to kind of expand the universe Hytale's in. Because, there's games like Halo or, like you said, Diablo, that give you these little booklets or even novels sometimes that just expand on the world because there's so much there to get lost in. And if Hytale brings that much lore to the table, that would be wonderful. Because there's going to be those people that want to know every detail about the universe. Yep. And giving that service to those people is a big contributor to having like almost a cult following to a game.
And it's also just going back to that video game roots thing, because this was like an early 2000s thing. I remember like at the game shops, you'd have all the games and then all their little corresponding books. And it was just, whenever I was stumped at a level, whenever I was stumped at a certain boss, I would just look it up in the game guide, and it was just such a cool way to kind of fill out the whole experience.
Right. I think that could be very good, and that's a very like unique perspective. I haven't heard that being suggested before. That's a cool idea. I think that'd be awesome. Anyway, so let's move on to the community questions. We got 3 of them today. First one from Quebec Corner. Who are your favorite artists, and who or what has inspired your style over the years? Do you enjoy other artistic or creative outlets?
Yeah, so as far as artists, it's pretty varied. When I was growing up, it was comic book artist. That's what I always wanted to be when I was younger, was a comic book artist. So Michael Turner, Brett Booth, Jim Lee, Todd McFarlane, all these just really evocative, unique style comic book artists. But then in the video games industry, I mean, basically anybody from Blizzard, Samwise Didier, Luke Mancini, Braum, Wei Wang. And then I guess the third part of that puzzle would be John Howe, Alan Lee, Brian Froud, like just the really folksy fantasy art. I mean, they've done work for Lord of the Rings. Just that look is so cool to me. So I guess a mix of all that would kind of summarize my source of inspiration: high fantasy literature, high fantasy video games, and then just a smidge of like mythology and folklore.
Yeah. I can see that for sure, because like, especially when you bring up Froud, like I'm such a fan of what he's done for like the Dark Crystal, and like he's incredible, and I can definitely see where inspiration would come from that, because absolutely incredible. So next one comes from Happy Lemur. What is your process for planning out your art? Like, what is happening, or how people / creatures are positioned? How long do you spend on each piece, and what are you most looking forward to doing in Hytale?
For the time thing, I know that's a couple of people asked about how long it takes. And to go from one extreme to the other, my Quebec sketch took probably 30 minutes to an hour tops, and that's like the simple end of the spectrum. And then the latest digital painting, which was the Razor Leaf Rangers, that took near 30 hours. And I know that because Procreate actually tracks the time you spend on illustrating. So that's super neat, because you can actually watch that in real time. And so 30 hours was that one, and that was a test. That was tedious.
Yeah. That's it makes sense. It's based on whatever project you're tackling at the time. You know, some things take short, sometimes it's longer. Last question comes from Chelts. I think that's how it's pronounced. I might have screwed that up. We'll see. What is one thing you wish you had known when you were first starting out? Which piece was the most difficult for you to complete, and why?
Both with like Hytale fan art and with art in general. I wish I had done more sooner. And this goes back to the procrastination thing. Like, I feel like I've wasted a lot of time doubting myself when I could have just been improving. And so walking that fine line between confidence and humility is a really tough thing to do. And it's something I've struggled with, but I really hope I can adjust my mentality enough to continue to express myself artistically in a healthy and positive way. But stay like, okay, I still have more to learn. So let me keep on that. And as far as the most difficult piece, it would definitely be the latest one, the Razor Leaf Rangers, just because it was a level of rendering I hadn't really tackled before. So not getting burned out staring at the same picture for 30 hours was an exercise in patience. I mean, it was enjoyable. It was all really enjoyable, but and the results were so much better because I stuck it out and finished it rather than just kind of taking a shortcut or whatever. So yeah,
totally understandable. Great stuff today. That was an amazing episode. With all that said, that was all the questions we had for you today. If there's anything else you'd like to say, socials, anything at all, feel free to do so now.
No, thanks for having me. It's been a lot of fun. I hope I can have more stuff done soon in the Hytale scene. I'm working on a couple drawings and paintings right now, and then a couple other cool stuff that I'm really want to show you guys. But for now, no, it's just the Twitter space. I'm still working on expanding my social presence, online social presence.
Of course, it has been an absolute pleasure, man. Make sure to follow Righteous Pebble on Twitter. All that stuff, all the links will be in the description. If there's any links any social medias that you get in the future, let us know. We'll put it in the description. And of course, thank you guys for tuning into this week's podcast, and consider subscribing if you would like to hear more. This has been your host, Fezzy the Frog, and we'll see you next time.
This video was sponsored by Virtual Gladiators. Virtual Gladiators have everything you need to make your very own Minecraft or Hytale server. Click the link in the description to find out more.